father-in-law's book, Prosperity, as we're going to examine it all month as a way of living life, an abundant way of living life. And so this month, the Joyful Gathering, we are meeting each week to explore the deep, timeless, and rich ideas, if you will, because rich is such a wonderful word. Rich in all things, abundance. And it's time for us, truly, I'm feeling this like throughout this, even writing this talk, that it's time for us to really shed the lack consciousness. To really shed it, because you know what? Gratitude doesn't cost anything. Gratitude for waking up and seeing the sun out today. Gratitude for being able to stand up and walk. Because as many of you know, for many years, I had a very hard time standing straight, even standing up here. But I did it. And I'm grateful, because I knew that the universal force of life would help heal. So that abundance includes everything. We have a saying in New Thought teachings which says God can only do for us what God can do through us. Are we open? Are we the inlet and the outlet for the divine to express through? Because that's our eternal self. Like Teresa's not here physically, but her spirit is most definitely eternal. There's no death in the spirit, none. No truer words so have ever been spoken, and in other words, we are an inlet and an outlet for this flow of good, for God itself. That's the law of circulation, and it works when you work it, as they say in AA, which I'm not in, but I have many family members who are, and God bless this organization. But it's so important to remember that we're an inlet and an outlet. An inlet and an outlet. I want you to say after me, I am an inlet.
I am an inlet.
I am an outlet.
I am an outlet.
For and of God.
For and of God.
Ooh, so great. And here's an amazing example of how it works. Kind of. Bear with me. There once was a little boy who wrote a letter to God. A postal worker found the envelope addressed to God, and he saw that it was in Charles' handwriting. He opened it and read the letter. Dear God, my daddy has been sick, and we have no money to pay the rent or to buy food. God, please send us $500. With gratitude, your friend Tommy. Postal worker was so touched by this that he took the letter to all of his co-workers, and he created an opportunity where they could all give to this cause. Within a week, he collected $300, and he sent that $300 to Tommy from God. So Tommy received this, and a few days later, another letter arrived at the post office from Tommy, and it said, Dear God, thank you very much for the $300. But next time, would you send the money directly to me? Because the post office deducts $200 more. There's a point to that story. You, me, like Tommy and the post office, are both an inlet and an outlet for the divine, for all aspects of the divine, including this thing that we call abundance. And abundance comes in many forms. It comes in ideas, it comes in peace, it comes in joy, it comes in love, it comes in money, it comes in ideas. How about that? Abundant ideas. That's how the universe creates, through ideas. So we also have that capacity to create through an abundance of ideas. So how wide is your inlet and your outlet pipes? How wide are they? We use pipes for a better word. How wide are they? How accepting are we? Will they let all the good through, or are we only letting $300 of the $500 through? Catch yourself. I have to catch myself. many times. If they're not as wide as we would like them to be, well, you're here today and we're going to discuss how we might be able to widen the inlet and the outlet. So, first Fillmore, Charles Fillmore, he's the founder of Unity, writes in his book Prosperity this, and it's taken from different pages. Poverty or prosperity, it all depends on you. All that the Father has is yours. You are alone. But you alone are responsible for the relationship of the Father's good to your life. Through our souls, God's wealth finds its expression. Wealth of consciousness will express itself in a wealth of manifestation. You hear us say a lot, manifest. We do things consciously because we consciously hold what it is we would like to experience in life, and we hold that vision. So that's through our consciousness. And if you were here 2 weeks ago, you will remember that we defined really in detail abundance consciousness. So I've included this little handout in your papers. Oh, I just skipped the whole thing. I didn't. See that little handout in your bulletin? Okay, so just take it out, remain in silence and take it out. And now, unlock your heart and your minds as you read over the definition. And you will see that it's turned into affirmative statements. I didn't even bring one up. Just be with them. Breathe them in. You can even have this laminated or printed nicer if you want. It's really a wonderful reminder. So I want us all to read it together with feeling, of course. Oh, that's... Let's read it together. Today I live in abundance consciousness, meaning I think from, feel from, believe from, speak from, act from, and react from a place that says, from substance I was created, in substance I live and move and have my being. By substance I am fed and prospered. This spiritual substance is steadfast and immovable, enduring, ever the same, constant, abundant, freely circulating, and available. It's always available to us, but we must have the faith. So when you embody these ideas and truly live from these ideas, they will help you to create a wealthy consciousness, which in turn expresses itself in wealth of manifestation in our lives. And remember that the biggest tool we have is gratitude. Because you could say, well, I don't have this and I don't have that, you know, but the gratitude for being able to take another breath, the gratitude for even being here this morning, the gratitude just from all the good that's in our life that we might not recognize, and then expect more. Why not? You're entitled to all the good the Father Kingdom has. So the second way to widen the inlet and the outlet pipes is by realizing that God has your back, but you got to get in the game. A little different. So I'm going to say that again. God has your back always, but you have to get in the game to play, right? You got to take some kind of action. This idea relates to these words in Prosperity by Fillmore. When we have given ourselves entirely to Spirit, we may do things without knowing exactly why. That is because faith is at work in us. And even if we do not know the law and cannot explain faith to the outer consciousness, it continues to do its perfect work and eventually brings about the demonstration. And sometimes, in fact, a lot of times, it's a demonstration that we might not even have expected. Because remember, as I always say, and I know many of you say, this or something better. So we pray for what we want. We hold the vision for what we want or something better, because the divine always has something better for us in store. I know this, I live this, I prove this to myself, and I invite you to do the same. Live it. Prove it to yourself. Don't believe me. I don't know anything. Don't believe me. But follow your own intuition. Follow that. It knows everything that you need to know. Your comfort zone, sometimes you have to move out of that comfort zone. You know, that place where we feel safe, where we really don't want to do anymore, where we make up all kinds of excuses. Well, I've reached, this keeps coming up in my life from other people, not me. I've reached a certain age. Now it's time to do this or not do this, and it's, no, because the eternal spirit within me is always creating new and new and newer and better ideas. And so I keep following that, even when it might be more comfortable not to. And then all kinds of unexpected events and people and phone calls and circumstances, things just, they start appearing in our lives that we look back and we go, well, I don't know how all that happened. It happened with one idea that we didn't get in the way of. One idea that we didn't stop, we didn't block. We let the inlet and the outlet flow. So let's pause here for a minute to be reminded of Fillmore's words. When we have given ourselves entirely to Spirit, we may do things without exactly knowing why. Anyone ever? It's like, what am I doing? Why am I even here? What am I doing to myself? And then you find out later. And then you say, I'm so glad I listened. I'm so glad I listened. Back to Fillmore. That's just me. But that's the part of getting in the game. We got to get in the game to play. That is because faith is at work in us, Fillmore writes. And even if we do not know the law and cannot explain faith to the outer consciousness, it continues to do its perfect work and eventually brings forth demonstration. Fillmore says this: when we have given ourselves entirely to Spirit, at least in part, this means listening to Spirit's voice, that intuitive voice within us, and then following it. How about that? Got to take those inspired actions. The point of the story is that God always has our backs. And as we pay attention and take the appropriate action, we get ourselves in this game of life and play it not by default, but by consciously living it. By consciously, we have that power. No one told us that. Nobody described that when we were growing up. Well, at least no one I knew didn't say you have the power. You can create whatever it is that your heart sings. You can create that. It was actually the reverse. And so now we can retrain our minds, because ultimately we are eternal spirits. We are the energy of divinity, expressing individually as each and every one of us. And to me, that's so comforting. It really is. And then we move on to, let me share with you the one final way that we can widen our inlets and our outlets. And it's another group of sentences from Prosperity by Fillmore, where he writes this: the great promise of prosperity is that if we seek God and his righteousness first, which means right thinking, by the way, then all else shall be added to us. One of the most practical and sensible ways of seeking God's kingdom first is to put God first in finances. When we put God first in our finances, not only in thought, but in every act, by releasing our first fruits to divinity, our faith is omnipresent supply becomes 100-fold stronger. and we prosper accordingly. And again, he writes, obeying this law gives us an inner knowing that we are building our finances on a sure foundation that will not fail us. It is the promise of God, the logical thing to do, and the experience of all who have tried it, that all things necessary to their comfort, welfare, happiness have been added to them in an overflow of measure. So we're probably, well, some of us might be familiar with the Prove Me Now tithing challenge that God gave us, as it appears in Malachi chapter 3, verse 10. And it's a powerful challenge, and it's for all of us to really see where we put our relationship to God first or last or in the middle in our lives. Did you know that before God made that challenge to us, Jacob, because now I'm going into the Bible, which I don't do too often. So Jacob made a challenge to God, if you know the Bible. Actually, the scripture says that he made a covenant with God in which he asked for prosperity, guidance, peace of mind, and reconciliation with his family. In turn, he made that promise to God. He said, of all that thou shalt give me, I will give the 10th to thee. And it seems that God took Jacob up on his promise on this deal and blessed him with all the things that he asked for. Now, a wonderful teacher in prosperity is Catherine Ponder. If any of you know her, if not, get her books. She's written many on prosperity. She writes this: it is little wonder that Jacob became one of the Bible's earliest millionaires. I once did a whole talk on that. Jacob became a millionaire. Like, I don't even know what year, but it was a long time ago. So anyway, back to Catherine Ponder. Those who tithe, taking God as their financial partner today, realize that this holy alliance will help them prosper in just and orderly ways, just as it did Jacob. So the second thing I want to say about tithing, and I like to call it pledging, because, you know, there's so much baggage with that word tithing. If you grew up in any religious organization, you might have had a lot of baggage with it, or you might have had great experiences with it. I like to call it pledging. It's my commitment to the divine, between me and the divine. That's what it is to me. But this is a very interesting phenomenon that I have experienced, and many others have also, is that if we give our pledge off the top to do God's work and to have that divine flow through us, we'll never feel it. But if we wait to give God our pledge off the bottom, we will never do it. It's kind of like the gym. My metaphor for life right now, my biggest challenge. I don't know why, but it is. If I don't do it first thing in the morning, guess what's going to happen around 4 or 5 o'clock? It's not happening. So it's best to do certain things, like the pledging, first, and then all else will be added. It is the way it works. Try it for yourself. So this is how we are in this law of circulation, the inlets and the outlets for divine flow. I'm going to wrap it up by just recapping what they are. We live from and fully embrace and embody abundance consciousness. How we really feel. Do we feel prosperous? I've felt prosperous when I've had very little material things in my life. And I've still felt prosperity. I've felt it in the joy and the love and the friendship that I seem to always be lucky enough to attract to me. So, second, we give ourselves entirely to Spirit by blessing and following that divine guidance. God's got my back. I got to get into the game. Show me how. Show me how. And the third is to put God in charge of your finances. Put God first in charge of your finances through the high and holy practice of what I'm calling pledging. Let the divine flow just move through you. I have so much I want to say about that. Let's close our eyes for a minute. I'm feeling it, yeah. So let's open our hearts, our minds, our very souls to the infinite good that I know is available to each and every one of us. Let us be the beacon, the inlet, the outlet, the allness of who we are and what we experience. And let us bring into our lives that divine creator who is beyond all description, who cannot be defined in any way, because it is this energy that is forever flowing, never a blockage, never a lack, never limitation in the flow of good, of this divine energy we call God, we call spirit, we call infinite intelligence. And so I claim that each and every one here is filled with this openness to receive the good that is rightfully theirs as being created as a child of the divine. And through that flow, through that acceptance of the good that is inherently each and everyone's birthright, I give thanks. And that gratitude, as Thanksgiving is approaching, I give thanks for all that is. I give thanks for all that was. I give thanks for all that is yet to be, knowing it is all God ordained and I'm in partnership with the divine. And so let's just breathe that in. Yeah. So these are the ways we can live a more fulfilling life. Where when we go into partnership with that power for good, we can't do anything but succeed. We can't. It's impossible. And so it is.
So it is.